Net control. Please check in KD8A, Kilo Delta 8 Alpha, Tony in Sissonville.
Okay, looks like we picked up another early check-in there. KD8A, Tony in Sissonville. This is Rob, W8XRW, getting ready for the West Virginia System Fusion Information Net. I'm taking early check-ins, so if you'd like to get on your name on the log before we get to the flurry of check-ins that we're going to have here after 8 o'clock and after announcements and such, you'll get into the log early and get out of the comment section early also, because your early check-ins are going to go right after announcements. So if you'd like to get on that list and you're sitting there listening, please call Net Control now.
This is Kilo Golf 8 Alpha India, John in Poca.
All right, looks like we picked up one more, KG8AI, John in Poca. Good to hear from you this evening, John. All right, 7:56 and 25 seconds, according to my clock here. So we've got just a few more minutes to the net, but I'm taking early check-ins this evening. So if you're standing by, would like to get your name on the log, we're going to be talking about the discussion topic pretty late this evening. It's going to be, what kind of antenna do you use on your handheld? And I've got a specific reason for asking that question. And I'll get to that a little bit later once everybody else joins us during the regular net. But back to early check-ins. If you'd like to go ahead and get your name on the log before we start here at 8 o'clock, please call Net Control now.
Net Control, can I make a quick pre-net comment in 4NT?
November 8, Quebec, Juliet Lima, Darla in Monroe County, Peterstown in Monroe County.
Okay, Darla, N8QJL in Peterstown in Monroe County. Good to hear from you again. Glad you could stop by this evening. We'll do one more check to see if anybody wants to check in prior to the net actually starting at 8 o'clock. This is Rob, W8XRW, taking early check-ins. If you want to get your name on the logs, please call now.
AB8 to RL, Thomas Scott Depot.
Net Control, please check in W8LC, Whiskey 8 Lima Charlie, Jack, mobile in Kanawha City. I'll be out of the repeater coverage area in about 5 minutes, but go ahead and put me on the log. W8LC.
Okay, looks like we picked up a couple more early check-ins. First up was Tom, AB8RL, there in Scott Depot. And Jack, mobiling over there in Kanawha City, right down the river. W8LC. Jack, glad you caught it, and glad you could check in there. All right, well, we don't really have enough time for early check-ins, so everybody stand by for the regular net. It'll be starting here in just about 45 seconds or so. This is W8XRW standing by. CQ. This is the West Virginia System Fusion Information Net. This is Net Control Station W8XRW. My name is Rob, and I'm located in South Charleston, West Virginia. The West Virginia Fusion Net is a directed net sponsored by West Virginia Amateur Radio and meets on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. for the purpose of fellowship among amateurs, exchanging information, and testing of amateur radio equipment. This net is conducted in West Virginia Link Room, ID 46488, and locally serves the Charleston and Huntington areas on UHF repeater 441.825 located in Scott Depot, West Virginia. When you do check in this evening, make sure to provide your say your call sign, then say it again phonetically, and be sure and give your name and location. That gives me plenty of time to hear what I've or realize what I've heard, and give me a chance to jot it down and wait for the next person. So first up, we've already done some early check-ins this evening, and we'll come back to you folks after we do announcements and regular check-ins. But first up, I want to call for any stations with announcements. Any stations that have announcements for the net, please call now.
N4NT, Adam in Bristol, Tennessee, with an announcement.
Okay, Adam, N4NT, got you marked down for announcement. Anybody else with an announcement for the net, please call now. Okay, nothing hurt. I'll have some an additional announcements after Adam this evening, but what we're going to do before we do that is go ahead and take some regular check-ins. We've already taken a few early check-ins this evening. Got a few names on the wall, but now we're going to take check-ins from the local area. So those are going to be check-ins that are located on the WV8AR repeater directly, the 441.825 repeater here in Scott Depot, West Virginia. So if you're coming into that repeater via RF locally here and want to check into the net, please call now.
NY8S, Kyle and Hurricane, November Yankee 8 Sierra, checking in for the net.
Okay, looks like we picked up NY8S, Kyle and Hurricane. One more stab at anybody locally on the 441.825 repeater before we move to regular Wires X check-ins. Please call now. Nothing heard. Okay. Before we go to any check-in anywhere, I'd like to remind everybody that this is we do a discussion topic during the evening. After we do check-ins and announcements, we'll go through the list and talk about that. And this evening's topic of discussion is going to be, what type of antenna do you use on your HTs? I'll explain a little bit more about that before we start talking about it at the end of my announcements. But when you're checking in, you can start thinking about that. That's what we're going to be discussing. Okay, so now I'll take check-ins from anybody, from anywhere, any method. Please call now.
Kilowatt 8,
Papa Echo Charlie, Pat, K8PEC. Kilo Echo 8, India Charlie Sierra, KE8 ICS, Brian and Wheeling.
Kilo 1, Whiskey Victor Alpha, Dave, Clarksburg.
KNet Control would like to recognize the following stations. K8PEC, Pat in Clarksburg. And John, you doubled with Pat, but I caught your call signs there at the very end, so I got KG5ODD, John checking in there, followed by Brian, KE8 ICS up in Wheeling, and followed by Dave, K1WVA in Clarksburg. Is there anybody else that would like to check into the net? Please call now.
AD0, hello?
Okay, looks like we picked up one. Didn't get your name or location. Can you come back with that, please, sir?
Yep, name is Dolph, that's DOLPH, and I'm in Wheeling, West Virginia.
All right, Dolph, up in Wheeling. Good to hear from you this evening. Glad you're able to check in. All right, last check before we go to announcements. Then we'll go through the topic of the evening. Then we'll do another follow-up check to see if anybody that's standing by wanted to check in. So, last stab before we go to announcements. If you'd like to check into the net, please call now.
Net Control, please copy November 8 Yankee Mike Tango with announcement.
All right, looks like we picked up one more there. Jay, N8YMT. Good to hear from you, Jay. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop there for a moment. We'll go back up to the top to Adam for announcements. N4NT, go ahead with your announcement, sir.
Yeah, this is N4NT, Adam in Bristol, Tennessee. Just wanted to let everyone know that I'll be featuring tonight's net actually live, and then it'll be there for later viewing. It'll be uploaded on my YouTube channel called the Ham Radio Zone. So if you want to check that out, it's just Ham Radio Zone with no Z in front of it. You can type that in and search on YouTube, or you can type in West Virginia LinkNet and it should bring it up. I think this is the first West Virginia LinkNet I've ever put on there, and I would like to do, I want to do a few more in the future, especially with it being a topic net and the educational value of it. But anyway, just want to let everybody know about that, and I will we'll create a playlist labeled West Virginia LinkNet, so that way if we do this again in the future, they'll be there. But yeah, if you want to go check out and see how your own audio sounds, or anything you heard and you're like, wow, now what did that guy say, what brand of antenna was that, then you'll have the option to go back and look. That was my announcement, and I'll stick around for my regular check-in time. This is N4NT.
All right, Adam. That's great, man. I've heard about you doing that for your guys' nets and that kind of thing, and some other stuff that you've been doing over there on HF with the Friendly Bunch and some other things. Never even thought to ask you if you could do this one, but that's a great idea, especially the audio part. Everybody always wants to know what they sound like, especially in comparison to other people and that kind of thing. This is a great time to do it, as in addition to the educational value. That's great. Okay, I appreciate your announcement, and before I do mine, I'll skip down to Jay. He was the last check-in in there, but I thought he said he had an announcement. So Jay, N8YMT, if you did say that you had an announcement, go ahead with yours, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate you getting me in there because I'm starting to go mobile, and I didn't want to move in case I started breaking up in the repeater. So, thanks for being there. Good evening, everybody in that. This is NA1 New Year's Day, Julian Alpaco. A couple things I do want to kind of throw out there. Our usual check-in on Sunday nights. It's the Sunday night Ohio Link check-in and information net. Sunday nights at 8:30. With that being said, some new information for those that do connect up periodically to Ohio Link. We had I don't want to say frequent, but we've had periodic issues with our YSF bridge crashing. So that means those that do connect in, which I believe you guys would be connected in, through a hotspot of some sort, unless your guys' repeater gets put into our room. Let me get a nickel. Anyway, our problems was those that would connect to our network via HOTS type thing, but still be in a mode in their Cedar radio would cause our YSF bridge to crash. So to alleviate that, we actually had to change our system a little bit, and we have now matched our YSF bridge number with our WiresX number. So both YSF and WiresX are both for 0557 now. Look on like a list, it'll say Ohio Link / I think it's RG, I forgot what it was, they just changed it yesterday. I think it's RG, but it just looked for Ohio Link again. But I just wanted to get that out there for those that did connect to our network. That's going on. It starts at 2 p.m. tonight. The reset happens, so anybody that does connect in afterwards, they do have to do an update. So thanks for letting me get in there, and I hope everybody has a good rest of your weekend. And we'll catch you later. This is N8YMT, Columbus on the Ohio Link on West Virginia Link.
KJ, appreciate you hanging in there and stopping by. Always giving us good information about what's going over your guys' way. Of course, can't recommend the Sunday night net enough. Our repeater here locally, we usually connect through the WiresX network, so no problem on that side. But I do know there's a couple fellows in the club that do connect through hotspots to different nets. And as a matter of fact, we have there's a Facebook page that I belong to. That's a West Virginia digital-based Facebook page. I'm going to try to post your information to that, maybe draw a couple other folks from that side of the house. I know we've got some fellows that are on DMR. Bill Taylor here in town does a lot of stuff on it there. And a couple fellows with hotspots that might want to try to do it that way. So appreciate you sharing that change in information there also. Okay. Well, looks like I'm up on my announcements now, and then we'll go to the discussion topic in the early check-ins first. Reward you guys for hanging in there early. Get you out the door early also. Break. Okay, so my announcements are our next WDR membership meeting is going to be held on Monday, May 11th at 7 p.m. It's going to be a virtual meeting. We're not going to do any face-to-face yet. We're still under a safe-at-home order now, I guess, here in West Virginia. So we're going to play it safe and do our meeting online. We're going to use our VHF repeater up there on Scott Depot as the audio portion of that meeting. And we're going to do an online portion via Microsoft Teams. And I'll be sharing that link on our Facebook page and on our in our reflector. The topic for that's going to be an overview of digital data modes. We're not talking about C4FM in this case, or Wires X or anything like that. We're talking more along the lines of things like FLDigi or WSJTX, WinLink, some of those PSK 31. A lot of those other digital modes are available on HF, UHF, VHF, but digital data modes. Not going to deep dive in any one, just going to do an overview kind of thing, and put out there what kind of things you'd have to put that together. We've got a lot of new members in our club, and it's been a while since we've been over that information, so maybe it'll get somebody going before field day activities and other contests going on this summer. So it's going to be Monday, May 11th at 7 p.m. on the 147.27, and a portion held online. Break. Okay, next up is the WDAR. Normally holds a VE testing session every month. They're on hold right now until we are able to use our regular meeting place again and aren't under the safe-at-home order. So for right now, until further notice, our VE testing sessions are canceled. And then that's all I have in the way of announcements this week. And remember, our discussion topic this week is what kind of antenna do you use on your HT? Let me explain that a little bit more about that real quick. Okay, well, here recently, there's been a flurry of HT buying. There's been quite a few FT3s purchased. And I personally have had a few questions about what antenna do I use on my HT. And it really made me kind of think that, I probably may not make the same choices that other people make about antennas. And it might make for a good discussion about what antennas you use and why. And to give you an example, I'll go ahead and start with myself and what kind of antennas I use on my HTs and why. Break. Okay, well, when I first started, I read a lot online about what kind of crap the stock antennas were that you got, and this is Baofangs, of course. I didn't know a whole lot about radios. That was the least expensive radio I could get to get into the game, so I got me a UV5R there, and promptly got a quarter wave antenna because I knew that a quarter wave antenna was better than the shorter antenna that I had on it. Used that a lot to get into the local repeaters. It did a pretty good job. There was a little bit of a difference between the stock antenna that came on, especially on 2 meters. There's a pretty big difference. But man, I felt like that quarter wave antenna was really unwieldy. I mean, I tried wearing it on my waist, and it went up all the way to my shoulder. And when I was holding it and trying to talk to somebody, kind of waved around and all that kind of thing. And eventually, I got to the point where I just took it to it. If I needed something that kind of long, I just took it to an external antenna. And then I even went to a further extreme. On my HTs, I stopped using even the stock antenna. Forget the longer antenna. But I even stopped using the stock antennas and started going with a shorter stubby antenna. And I did that about the time I picked up the VX6 radio. That was my upgrade. The antenna on it, the stock antenna, wasn't bad. Seemed to do an okay job. But I'd seen where for close communications, little stubby rubber antennas are about 2.5, 3 inches long or so. I've got a little rubber one, but was a little bit more handy on your hip. Didn't seem to get in the way as much. And for local communications, or where I'm located to the repeater, it really didn't make a whole lot of a difference whether I was using that big quarter wave, the stock antenna, or that little stubby antenna, right? And I also do a whole lot of hiking, and spend a lot of time out in the forest and all that kind of stuff, and use crossband repeat a lot. And also notice that for the distance I was talking about, typically no more than a mile or two from where my Jeep was, and I normally pick the high spot to park it at to do crossband repeat. Between that and in the distance that I was from the repeater and the location of my Jeep, that little stubby antenna did fine. So, contrary to what a whole lot of people do, I'd say about 90% of the time on whatever radio I'm using, I'm typically have a little small antenna. I do carry around the stock antenna. Thankfully, I've got an FT2DR and an FT3DR, and they both use the same antenna, so I can swap all those around as needed. But I use that little small antenna just because it's sufficient for my needs. It's almost like the whole idea of you only need to use as much power as necessary to make your transmission. Well, I only use as much antenna as necessary to fit my needs or suit my needs. And a lot of times that small antenna does the job for me. If it doesn't, I'll hop it up a little bit. And if I get to the point where I wave antenna, well, for me, that's usually the time to just go ahead and plug in and put an adapter on it and plug it into some type of external antenna, whether it be mobile or up on the roof or even a Slim Jim thrown up in a tree. If I'm looking for some distance, that does it for me. Okay, so that's a little bit about, the brand name doesn't matter a whole lot, I don't think. There's as long as you don't go super cheap. I know none of my antennas have cost a whole awful lot and seem to be pretty well made. But I guess I was putting out just more of a general concept. So maybe you guys have a favorite brand or a favorite antenna, or even have a different experience. I'd like to hear from you on that. Okay, so first up is Adam, N4NT. Go ahead with your comments.
Okay, well, I'll give just a slight different perspective on that in a couple different ways. When I first got my ticket, I had one of the Radio Shack HTX 202 2-meter HTs, and I used the stock antenna that came on it, and then I stumbled upon a telescopic antenna that was BNC connection. It was supposed to be rated for 2-meter band, so I used that, and it seemed to do a little bit better. And also, at the time, that was the only radio that I had, so I would connect it to various antennas that I had. I had a J-pole that one of the other hams built for me when I was first licensed as a kid there, and used that for a long time. And then I would run that thing mobile and use a mag mount antenna. But that thing has since seen its better days. But right now, I've got a bunch of the Baofeng HTs. I mostly use those to kind of play around with the kids, let them learn how to push the button to talk and let off to listen and that kind of thing. So as far as what I seriously use for amateur radio, I've got a FT70 and a FT3D. So those take the same antenna connection. I pretty much just use the factory antenna when I'm using it like an HT. One of the things I did, though, was I ordered a mag mount antenna to put on my wife's car and to also take with me, like if I go to travel or something, go to the beach, for instance, and want to set the FT3 up to use it as a node radio and connect it to my laptop, and then transmit using my FT70 through it. I've got a mag mount antenna, and I can put that on my wife's vehicle where I don't have a permanent radio connected, and I just got your standard mid-price range mag mount antenna. It has a little bit of gain to it, dual bander, that kind of thing. But one of the unique things that I did when I ordered this mag mount was I actually ordered it with the SMA connector already on it, as opposed to a PL259 or a BNC. So I can connect that thing directly to the radio without any adapters, and then if I need to connect it to something else, I have adapters that I can get that SMA to something else if I need to. But let me put another quarter in. So that's kind of the unique thing I did there. Now my work radio, most of you that know me know what I do for a living. It came with an antenna that was about 6 or 7 inches long, and it would kind of gouge me in the ribs and get up into my vest and that kind of thing, and it was really annoying. So like you had said there, I went with the stubby antenna for it, and my work radio was on 800 megahertz. I noticed absolutely no difference between that antenna and the longer antenna. So just a little different perspective there. I'll throw out an invitation real quick too to check in on Tuesday nights at 9:30 Eastern in room 61243 for the Tri-Cities Mountain Empire Fusion Net. We'll be glad to have you. The West Virginia group really has a good presence with us there, and we certainly appreciate that. And just a reminder, we're putting this all out on YouTube tonight on Ham Radio's own channel. With that, I'll turn it back over to Net Control and say 7-3. This is N4NT.
All right, Adam. Appreciate the comments and the perspective. Exactly the kind of thing that I was looking for. How you use it. Good information. All right, before we go down to the rest list, I'm going to see if Jay, N8YMT, is still in. He said he was going mobile, so I don't know if he's still available or not. But Jay, if you're listening and you have any comments about the topic, what type of antenna do you use on your HTs, call now.
N8YMT, yeah, I'm doing mobile island. It's an application, I guess. I have an F70 that I typically keep a Millball, M-I-L-C-O-L, stubby rubber antenna on, because that one stays around the house and it goes into a hot spot into my nose. So for low profile and close type stuff, I use that for. If I choose to take it away from the house and portable is. I have my favorite antenna is the Diamond SRH 701. I know a lot of people know the 77CA, I believe it is, the long length one. But I don't really use long length ones if I need to. So that 701 is about a halfway point. It has something to it, but it definitely covers the basis. So as far as HTs, and that's pretty much the two I bounced back and forth to. And then currently my car, since I haven't had time to actually install the FTM 100, I use a 1XZ HT on a Comet V10 mobile magnet mount sitting on top of the car, and it seems to equivocate just fine with it. I mean, it matches pretty much with it, so you don't have like this massive antenna for 5 watts or whatever. Really well, so. In a nutshell, that's pretty much all I got there. I'll send it back to you, N8YMT.
All right, good stuff, Jay. Glad you were able to go ahead and give your comments on that, and I appreciate you throwing in the specific models just to give somebody new a direction to head or some idea what other people are using. All right, next up was Dave, and he had no comment, so we'll go to Bob, W8RLG.
Well, good evening, Rob, and everyone on the net. My HT is the FT3, and I must say I have never used the stock antenna that came with it. I have 2 diamond antennas, One is the SRH519, which is about an 8-inch, the real thin little whip type antenna. And I have the 2 3/4-inch SRHF10, which is what I use probably 95% of the time, since I'm close enough to the repeaters here that it covers all throughout my house and around my neighborhood. Break. Initially, I did use the HT in my truck, and I had a Comet M24S, which is a little quarter wave antenna that did come with the SMA connector on it, and that actually performed quite well for me in the truck there. I was really pleased with some of the distance I got out of that. But the little short rubber ducky there is, like I said, about 95% of the time, and it does the job. And I also do some crossband from my radios are located in a shop next door to my house, so sometimes I'll put it in crossband and I can operate from the HT over in the house. So that's my story. Thank you. W8RLG.
All right, Bob, good hearing from you. Glad you mentioned once again the specific antennas that you're using and what you use them for and how you like them, even, and how often you use them. Appreciate the information. All right, next up is Tony, KD8A.
Yeah, good evening.
Yep, on my, well, of course, on the FT3 here, I haven't got around to changing the antenna up. I'm still running on the original. My other radios, I've put BNC adapters on all of them, so I can switch back and forth between aftermarket antennas. And I've got a Diamond RH77CA and I don't remember the model on this one. It was sold as an Expert Power brand antenna, but the Diamond's about 15 inches long, and this one's about 7. The Expert Power one. I've been looking into those little stubby antennas because I'm starting to do a lot of working through a crossband repeater here at the house or a node, and I don't get very far away from it, so it would be convenient to have that little stubby antenna on the radio. But that's about all I've got. Hope everybody's having a great week and has a great weekend to come. KD8A, back to net control. Okay, Tony, good to hear from you this evening. And yeah, those for close-up work like that, it's hard to beat those stubby antennas. Okay, next up was John, KG8AI.
Good evening, Rob, and everyone on the net. Well, I'm usually going the other direction. I usually put a bigger antenna on than the shorter one. Going clear back to the first HT I ever owned, there was a company in existence back then, went by the initials AEA, and they produced some telescopic BNC connected antennas they called hot rods. They had one for 2 meters, one for 220, and one for 440. The heat strength tubing over the coil indicated which one of those it was. If it was a 2 meter, as I recall, it was red. And seemed to work good and extended my range on the HT. I was usually in places where range was the issue. I eventually lost that antenna. It went to Utah when I was out there for work and didn't manage to make it home. I don't know where it's at. But later bought a MFJ equivalent, supposedly. I like the AEA better, but the MFJ works under the same principle. As far as rubber duck antennas go, I've purchased a few Larson. I guess maybe they're Prime is the name of the company now. But they call them Cool Duckies or Cool Ducks. They were a longer version of a regular HD rubber duck type antenna. And I've got a few of those that I still put on occasionally. I've bought But I had to buy adapters in later years that would go from an SMA type connector on the HT to a BNC on the aftermarket antenna, and I've got those and use them regularly. And sometimes it makes a difference in making a contact or not, especially if you're trying to work simplex. And of course, I've hooked them up to antennas in the vehicle too, both permanently mounted the antennas and mag mounts as appropriate at the time. But typically, I'm looking for bigger antenna instead of a little short, stubby one. KGA.
Hey, John, appreciate the comments. And yeah, there's no doubt that the larger antennas are more efficient and work better. And it's funny because what I've found in just generalized testing is the 440 doesn't seem to matter near as much as 2 meter. It makes a real difference using a quarter wave or a longer antenna on the HT. Does a lot better. Hey, the next check-in was Darla, N8QJL.
Well, good evening again to you, Rob, and everybody else on the net. And I've did several ones. I started out like Adam, the old Radio Shack HT202, and I used telescopic antennas because it was the only way I could get into local repeaters at the time. And I've done the mag mount on the cabinets. Right now I've got an FT70 that I use, and I basically just use the stubby antenna because I'm going through my node radio. And then I've got a TYT 380 that I use for DMR going to hotspot, and I use a stubby on it because the DMR repeater, I can't hit it direct. It's just too far away. So anyway, that's basically what I do. I use hotspots. I'm using the internet and use a hotspots and node radios and a stubby antenna. Mag mount just whenever I want to get into the local repeaters, what I'm using. But anyway, this is very interesting and enjoyable. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. Stay safe. Thank you, JL.
All right, Dara. Thanks for the report. And yeah, it keeps going back to what everybody's saying is the most appropriate antenna for the situation. Anywhere from those marginal contacts on simplex, you're going to do better that way. But if you don't need the extra, find something else. So sounds good. All right, next up was Tom, AV8RL, but he texted me a few minutes ago, said he was heading out, so I'm going to skip on past him. I'll do a quick check with Jack, W8LC. He was mobile, so he's probably not in range anymore, but I'll do a quick pause just to see if he's still listening or made it back in somehow. So Jack, W8LC, if you are on there, go ahead. Okay, nothing heard. Didn't expect much. He was in Canal City, heading out. So doesn't surprise me. Next up, we've got Kyle, NY8S. What are you using for antennas on your HT there, Kyle?
Okay, normally I get the any like 15-inch antenna. The only other HT I had until I got this FT3 was Bofung, and here where I am in Hurricane, I don't have a good line of sight on the repeater, so I didn't really get anything good on my handheld at my house without the larger antenna. The FT3, the stock antenna it came with, I think does pretty well. I can actually get the repeater with it in a couple spots in my yard, but I did just get the diamond antenna that Tony was talking about for it, and it seems to help out a lot around here where I am. Other than that, I mean, that's my only experience, so that's really all I can say. But they've been working out all right for me, so back to you, Net Control.
All right, Kyle, appreciate the report, and it's important to note that you're one of those ones that's in a marginal area, and that little bit of extra antenna makes all the, just like John was talking about, it's the difference between making a contact and not, or making it into that repeater or not. So important to keep in mind. All right, next up was Pat, K8PEC up in Clarksburg.
KPEC. Really nothing for the net. Antenna I use on my FT2 is just the rubber. Since I can hit all the local repeaters where my home is, I'll get pass it back to net control at KPEC.
Okay, Pat, appreciate the comments. Good to hear from you this evening. Glad you could check in. Next up was John, KG5ODD.
W8XRW, and the group is KG5ODD. About the only HT I fool with is an FT70, talking to my node. I live in an HOA, so I really don't do much with repeaters. I've got a couple of attic antennas, but they really don't work too well, so that's about all. I do have a DMR radio that I use on a hotspot occasionally, but I really don't like DMR, so I pretty much quit fooling with it. So that's about it for me. 7-3 to everyone. This is KG5ODD. Back to net control.
Okay, John, good to hear from you. Glad you could stop by again this evening. All right, next up, looks like we have about 3 more stations here to report in and give their comments. Then we'll pause and see if anybody wants to get in on the discussion and get their names on the logs, or just get their name on the log. Either way. But next up was Brian, KE8ICS. What kind of antennas do you use on your HTs, Brian?
Good evening, Rob. Everybody else on the net. I use the stock antennas a lot around the house when I'm connecting my node. But when I go out and have to do any kind of field work, I have a backpack that has MOLLE attachments. So I buy a longer quarter wave antenna. I got the SLR-H77CA, and I put it in there so it's not hanging off my side. It's on my backpack, so it don't really bother me too much when I'm maneuvering around there. So it seems to work pretty good there. The repeaters are pretty close. I could probably get by with keeping the stock on there, but I just buy them and put them on there just be on the safe side there. I bought a longer one like that for each one of the radios I have. So other than that, that's about all my experiences with them. So everybody have a great Friday. Take care. 7-3s. This is KE8ICS back to net control.
Okay, Brian, appreciate the comments, and yeah, that is one place that I do use my longer antenna. It's when I am out hiking and I need a little bit extra distance. I will use my quarter wave and put it on my backpack and snake it up through the MOLLE attachments like that, or MOLLE attachments. Works pretty well that way. If I'm using a hand mic, then snake it up through and put it on my the shoulder strap. Works pretty good in that configuration, honestly. It's almost like a mini base station on my back. So I get you there. All right, next up was K1WVA. Dave, up in Clarksburg. Go with your comments.
Good evening, Rob, and everyone else on the net. This is K1WVA, Dave, located in Clarksburg. And let's see, I've got a FT1. That was the first C4FM handheld. And on that one, I have an SRH77CA, which does an excellent job. And then I have another one here. It's a VX3 Yaesu. That was a waste of money. It's got a stock antenna, and I've got a TYT DMR here with stock antenna. I never use it either. And here recently I purchased a Nikon V86 that I really like, and it's got the stock antenna, but I've got adapters for all of them where I can go any way I want to. Nice day today. That air was a little cool, but nothing compared to what it's going to be cool and cold for the next several days, I'm afraid. I'm sure it's about the same in southern part of the state. K1WVA, Clarksburg, back to net control.
All right, Dave, good to hear from you again. Appreciate the report. And yeah, we're getting ready to get that cold blast. I can't believe that they're calling for snow. Possibly even here in Charleston. I can understand the up in the mountains and stuff like that. Even that, it's kind of late in the year. But man, if we'd see snow down here this way this time of year, it'd be something else. Crazy, crazy times as far as that goes. All right, this is my last check-in on my list here, and then we'll, after Dolph here does his comments, we'll turn it over and see who else might like to get their name on the rolls or join the discussion. So, AD0LF, Dolph, up in there in Wheeling, go ahead with your comments. Okay, nothing heard. So we'll go ahead and move on. And looks like we're taking a fresh round of check-ins. So this is W8XRW Whiskey 8 X-Ray Romeo Whiskey. My name is Rob. If you've wandered into this net, this is the information net here in the West Virginia Link room. And the topic for the evening is, what type of antennas do you use on your HT? So if you'd like to check into the net, join the discussion, please call Net Control now.
Net Control, November 8, Delta Victor Lima, Derek and Buchanan.
Net Control, either I missed it or got skipped. Kilowatt Alpha 8 Yankee Echo Zulu K8 YZ Matt and Wheeling.
K8 RRT.
Okay, Net Control recognizes N8DVL, Derek in Buchanan. And Matt, I am sorry, I had you checked in there before, and somehow I completely skipped over you for comments. So I did have you checked in, and I'll get back to you here in just a moment. Appreciate you calling out there again. That was followed by Tim, K8RRT. Good to hear from you, Tim. Okay, before we get to their comments, we'll go ahead and see who else might like to get their name on the log. Join the discussion. Please call Net Control now.
It's KD7 JVP. The name is Ed, Echo Delta.
House, and if you would check in WW8RT N0ULL, and we'd like to check in NU8LL.
Okay, looks like we have a group of check-ins there. The first up was KD7JDP, Ed stopping by. Thanks, Ed. We'll get back to you here in a minute. Then Tim hollered out. I believe they may be having a little bit of an antenna party down there at Tim's house, getting a getting an antenna up on the tower there. And those were WW8RT, N0 ULL, Devin, and NU8LL, Mike. So appreciate you adding them to the rolls. Okay, before we go to comments by those folks, anybody else want to check into the net? Please call now.
Kilo 4, Mike, India, Charlie.
Okay, looks like we picked up one more. K4, Mike, India, Charlie. Okay, we'll check back with you here in a minute. Before we take any more comments, let's go ahead and go back up to the top of the check-ins here with Derek, N8DVL, up in Buchanan. Go ahead with your comment.
Hey, Rob. Good evening, everybody on the net. Hope everybody's doing well. Not much going on here in Buchanan. Cold this morning, and then turned out to be a beautiful day, but yeah, it looks like snow's on the way for tomorrow. As far as handhelds, I just picked up a FT3D I'm pretty happy with. It's got the standard duck on it currently, but I've got a nice new Diamond SRH770S here that I've been playing around with a little bit. Seems to be a pretty good performer. Over the years, I've used all kinds. I heard one of the previous check-ins talk about the Cool Duck. I had a few of those back in the day, and those were a pretty good antenna. But yeah, a lot of good options out there, even back to the old telescopic days. It was always pretty interesting. I never understood how those remained fairly low SWR, but what we didn't know didn't hurt us, I guess. But that's all I've got. 7-3s from Buchanan, and hope everybody has a good evening. I'd ask to be excused from the net. I'd like to hop over to another frequency for a 9 o'clock net. N8DVL.
All right, Gary, good stuff. Glad we could get you in there before you had to change frequencies and you could stop by. All right, next up is the very patient Matt, K8YEZ, there in Wheeling. Matt, sorry I missed you there earlier. Your turn now.
Okay, not a problem. Just getting the little one to bed, and getting ready to sit down and do some work paperwork. I hate big antennas. I've been for years using a version, or a couple different versions. Start out with a Maldol AH209, and their Comet made a little 209. It's a little rubber duck, about 2 3/4 inches long, fairly flexible, and I use that 99.9% of the time. I very rarely use any other antenna, because like some of the guys, I crossband if I need to. I have crossband here at the house. I have crossband at the truck. So anytime I need to, I crossband. And when I'm working, doing field work, a good example would be the Wheeling Christmas Parade. I buy some time. I'm in charge of communications for the Wheeling Christmas Parade, and I'm with the head parade director, parade marshal, whatever you want to call him, and I have a little extension wire, the HDs on my belt are in belt clip on the pocket, but wearing the ball cap with a little extension up to the ball cap. There's a little clip that clips the antenna on the ball cap, and it works absolutely wonderful as far as I'm concerned. If I need to get the antenna up away from my body, so that's what I use here. Back to net, bring on the snow, keeps the grass from growing.
Gateway.
All right, man. Good hearing from you. And I think there's more than a couple folks in the audience there that appreciate the bring on the snow, slow down the grass comment. I know I sure do. And honestly, I never thought about clipping an antenna to my hat, but makes perfect sense. I've seen a whole lot of antennas on the on the microphone configurations with the Motorola's and stuff like that. But man, you're picking the highest point on your body. It makes perfect sense. Never thought about that. Okay, so next up was Tim, K8RRT. And Tim, I'm gonna do something a little bit different since you got a crowd there at your house. I'm gonna call each one of those guys individually. You can either hand the radio to them or just have them feed their comments through you, either one, for Steve, Devin, and Mike there. But Tim, go ahead with your comments.
All right, Rob, it sounds like you've had a tremendous net this evening. We've been monitoring as we've been finishing up the job on the tower, and we installed a vertical at the about the 80-foot mark, and I'm hoping that'll bring dividends down here. I think those guys were short time, and two of them's already left, so we were glad to get the check in. I do have a comment, Ray. My comment is much like what Kyle, I think Kyle lives on Sycamore Road maybe, if that's the same gentleman I'm thinking of. I may have spoken to him before. We have the terrain effect where we have the blockage going to the 2.7, and without this quarter wave antenna, I couldn't carry it. The HD would be worthless down here because it's definitely hit and miss. I normally run quarter waves on the FT2DR and on this FT70. They work fine. I sure wish I could carry a stubby antenna like I've seen some of you guys using. It'd be great. But for outdoor use, I have to use a little bit bigger antenna to be able to to get in the machine. And I'm hoping I'm in full quieting right now. I hope. So anyway, getting into the 441825. So anyway, we've enjoyed the net, and good evening to everyone. Everybody's been sounding great, and hope to talk to everybody again. Rob, great job. W8XRW Net Control, and from the group here, you got them written down. They've already moved on. So K8RRT73.
All right, Tim. Good stuff, and good to hear from you. And yeah, by the way, you're full quieting into the repeater, no problem. Once again, a perfect example of using the right equipment in the right application, and that's one of them. You wouldn't be able to talk to us this evening without doing that. So sometimes it's not about how handy it is or how it looks or whipping around in the air. Sometimes it's about getting the job done, which is just as important. All right, next up was Ed, KD7JVP. Welcome to the net, Ed. What are your comments?
Thanks for having me on the net. The latest handheld that I got was in November, and it was FT3D, and I very quickly put a dual band, the SRH 320A on it, which I really, really like. I've been a ham over 20 years. I have probably more antennas than what the law should allow, but I do like this one. And I do like whenever I have the opportunity to have like a mag mount dual band that I stick on a baking sheet if I'm talking for very long, just to get that RF energy a little bit further away from my head. But anyway, I'm a little bit further west than West Virginia. I'm out here in Phoenix, Arizona, and as I heard other folks on the net indicate that there's some cooler weather moving into West Virginia. Well, we have a little bit cooler weather here with the chill factor. I think it's going to be 106 tomorrow. So with that, I'll turn it back to Net Control. This is KD7JVP.
All right, Ed. Good to hear from you. Glad you wandered onto our net here. Appreciate the weather report. We were a blazing 65 here today. I didn't have to wear my fleece outside whenever I was cooking my hamburgers. So, I've got a brother that lives out in Arizona, not too far from Phoenix, and he's been telling me about the heat, and you can say all you want about it's a dry heat, but hot's hot as far as that goes. So one extreme to another, I guess. We're headed for snow, and you're headed for early heat wave. Good to hear from you. Okay, the next call sign I've got is K4MIC. I didn't catch a name or a location, so if you could come back with that and your comments about what type of antennas you use on your HTs.
This is K4MIC. Name here is Mike, and I am located in Sugar Grove, West Virginia, over in Pendleton County. And I've got this FT70 that I've just picked up here in about last month, and I just use the stock rubber duck antenna on it because I'm using it to get into my node here at the house. So pretty much I could, if it wouldn't be severely bad for the finals in the radio and tremendously reduce my power, I'd probably unscrew the antenna and just walk around with no antenna hooked to it at all. It'll work, but I've got an old Yaesu FT60 that I've got a diamond, like a spaghetti noodle looking antenna on it that has always worked great for me. I really like that antenna, and it's flexible, so you can get it kind of twisted one way or the other and it doesn't hurt it. And then an old cheap Bayfang radio, and I've got a dual band aftermarket antenna I bought for it, and it seems to work okay, but works about as good as the radio does, if you get what you know what I mean. Other than that, we've got I don't think we're going to get that snow over on this side of the state. Maybe over on the Allegheny Mountain. That's as far as east, I believe. We might see some flakes, but I don't think anything's supposed to lay. But it is supposed to be cold. Cold tonight, colder, even cold Friday night and Saturday night. Freeze warnings in effect. So here we go. I'm looking forward to some summer real soon. I'll turn it back over to you. This is K4MIC.
All right, Mike, glad you could check in again. Yeah, I didn't recognize your call sign, but as soon as you said Sugar Grove, I remembered you checking in last week when Tom was net control. And the reason it stood out for me is I talked just a minute ago about I had a brother that lived in Arizona. Well, I have another brother, a younger brother. I've got 5 brothers altogether. The one in Arizona is a year older than me, and the stepbrother. And then I had another brother that's 3 years younger than me that spent some time there in Sugar Grove. He back in the day, he joined the Navy, was going to see the world, and got stationed in West Virginia at the base up there for a few years. It's a pretty neat story there as far as that goes. Anyway, good to hear from you. Glad you could check in. And your check-in stood out to me just because of your location. Okay, that brings me to the end of the list. This is W8XRW. My name is Rob. This is the West Virginia Digital Fusion Net. If you'd like to check in the net and join the conversation, please call now. Okay, nothing heard. That brings us to the end of the net here. And I just wanted to thank everybody. It is a great net, great comments, exactly the kind of thing I was looking for. Got a good cross-section of people, and all across the spectrum as far as antennas, everything from no antennas, they're in one spot maybe, just not burning up the radio or anything, and but really though, stubby antennas all the way to external antennas up on the roof, and who knows, maybe Tim will plug his HT, use that adapter, and put his HT on that antenna. It's 80 foot up in the air. I believe the one he was putting up's a 2 meter, 70 centimeter, and 6 meter and combo antenna. That'd be pretty nifty. Plug his HT into that, and one of the other things that was a theme in the net was the use of adapters, whether it be SMA to BNC or SMA to PL, whatever. But adapters, you know, that's one of the things. No matter what kind of antennas you're using, you really need to invest in one of every kind of adapter so you can attach to whatever antenna is available to you. It makes the most sense. All right, well, I appreciate everybody checking into the net this evening. This is Net Control W8XRW for the West Virginia Fusion Information Net. I want to thank everybody who stand by and who checked in, and welcome you back next Thursday at 8 o'clock. This net is now formally closed with a total of 24 check-ins at 9:06 p.m. Eastern Local Time. This is W8XRW, Net Control 73, and good night.